Running this webinar series in the month of March, and this is the 12th webinar in this series. Um, this webinar is recorded and you'll have the resources available on dataplatformgeeks.com after the webinar. If you have missed any previous webinars, you'll be able to go to Data Platform Geeks and will be able to see the webinar recordings. Welcome to today's webinar. It's about migrating and modernizing your SQL Server workloads to Azure SQL Database by Parikshit Savjani from Microsoft. Before we start the webinar, I would like to walk you through a couple of slides. Everyone knows Data Platform Geeks is our biggest data platform community in Asia. It's a community initiative by eDomino Solutions, and there are other companies under eDomino brand. SQL Maestros is one of them, which runs trainings and masterclass across India. So if you're interested, please do go ahead and visit the relevant sites, and you'll get more information about the company. As most of you are aware, Data Platform Summit has been announced. This is the 4th year, and we run this conference every year in August in Bangalore. This is happening at Hotel Park Plaza in Bangalore from 9th to 11th August, and we have 2 full-day trainings on 7th and 8th of August in Bangalore. If you're really interested in data platform and open source, this is the one summit, one of the biggest summit that happens in this region. So please do plan and make sure that you attend this conference. We have 3 days learning that happens during the conference, and also there are 2 pre-conference trainings. Those are full-day trainings. At the end of this session, I'll walk you through what all the pre-conference trainings are available. But this conference has got many speakers from Microsoft Data Group and also people from Redmond. They are MCMs, MVPs, industry experts. So most of the speakers are traveling from all around the world and are presenting at this conference. So this will be a wonderful opportunity for you to meet and interact with other industry experts in this area. I would like to introduce you to the core team of Data Platform Geeks. Amit Bansal is the founder of the community, and I myself, I am the vice president of this Data Platform Geeks right now. Avnish Panchal, Prince Rastogi, Sandeep Pani, Yogesh Vapul, and Surbhi Agarwal are the pillars behind this community. So we all together run the conference, Data Platform Day events, the webinars. We also have blogs and every other resource that is on dataplatformgeeks.com, and all the events is run by this core team. We also have a strong support from eDomino teams who help us in organizing these events. So they are the backbone who help us in running these events. Special shout out to Microsoft, without whom we'll not be able to do these community events. Thanks to Microsoft for all the support for running this community. If you're attending this webinars, you would have already registered with dataplatformgeeks.com. If you are new to this site, please go ahead and visit the site, because there are a lot of free resources that are available. You'll be able to access different blogs, the content that is shared, the session materials, the webinar recordings are all available on this site. So please do leverage the resources that are available on this site, and you will also get regular updates about the events that are happening across Data Platform Geeks. And finally, the biggest group of SQL Geeks is on Facebook, and you can also join the LinkedIn group, where you can post your questions and you get expert advice on these groups when you have some questions. You can also answer questions. So if you have some expertise, you will be able to share your knowledge with your peers in these groups. So please join these groups. If you have any questions, not only related to today's topic, but any other topic, you should be able to post the question and get response on these groups. Now I'll hand over to Parikshit to start the presentation for today.
Thanks,
Over to you,
Manu.
Parikshit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, just want to check. Thank you. All right, I'm sharing my screen now. Let me know when you guys are able to see it.
Yes, Parikshit, we can see your screen.
All right, thanks, Manu. All
Thank you.
right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time out to join this session on migrating your on-premises SQL Server workload to Azure SQL DB. My name is Parikshit Savjani. I'm one of the cloud solution architects in the Northwest US region, working with some of the enterprise customers here in this region to to plan and architect their data and AI solutions in Azure. Prior to this role, and I recently moved into this role. Prior to this role, I was a PM program manager in SQL Server Tiger team in SQL Product Group. And prior to that, I was a premier field engineer in US and back in India as well. And that's how I have my roots coming from India, Bangalore. And that's the reason I kind of love to take every opportunity to present it back to the Indian SQL community out there. I owe them a lot. So 10 years with Microsoft, most of that comes on SQL Server. That's where my expertise lies. I'm moderately active on Twitter. You can find me on Talk to Savjani. I've also authored a couple of books on SQL on Azure, and BI solutions using SSAS Tabular model. And all my slide decks for my past presentations and whatever presentations I deliver are there in the slide share, so you can find them as well. So that's about me. So this conversation or talk is more about Azure SQL Database, which is the PaaS offering of SQL Server in Azure. Why should you care about it? What are things you need to account for when you're thinking about migrating your SQL Server workload to Azure SQL DB? What are the tools and services available for you? And finally, I'll give you a glimpse of Azure SQL Managed Instance, which is a new offering which we just went public in the public review a couple of weeks back. So that's the brief agenda. It's not a deep dive session. I don't have any deep code available, so it's a session which the audience can be a DBA, DevOps, or even a business decision maker or an IT BDM. So this is more of a high level presentation on how you would approach migration or modernization of your SQL Server workload running on on-prem hardware, your own data center to Azure SQL Database. So get started with why Azure, or why even you should care about SQL PaaS. If you look at these companies, and I'm sure you would have seen this slide in some form or the other in any of the social medias. These companies are in the modern world called as digital disruptors. They have brought digital disruption in the segment or the verticals they cater to, and all of them have one common theme: they are technology companies. uh, Uber in mass transportation business, Skype in communications, Amazon we know in retail, and Netflix in the media industry has caused this disruption. And the way they used technology in a different way, and now they have kind of provided a leadership where all the existing players and existing business are using the same model. When I say same model, are using technology to innovate and get their products closer to their customers, since each of the customer or all the end consumers are now having smartphone internet access. So the best way for any business to reach out to their customer is using technology. Now when that happens, every company becomes a software company in a sense. If you talk about any healthcare company, any banking company, you are not interacting. You're interacting with them essentially through their software, and all their services are offered through their software and applications and services. So the way businesses are embracing this change is by using cloud. They do not want to be an infrastructure company. That's not their core business. So if you pick up Walmart or if you pick up Boeing, that's not their core job to maintain data centers. Yes, they did that in the past, and they still have it. But going forward, and all the new players or the small and the medium businesses, and even for that matter in India now, if you pick up Flipkart or if you pick up Ola Cabs, all these businesses are actually built on cloud. A cloud gives them an elasticity. There is an uncertainty which can be filled by cloud. It's like when if you think about a consultant who starts his business and who moves to different places, he lives in rent on various hotels for a transactional engagement, because there is uncertainty. You don't know before you start investing in house or or a permanent stay. So that same logic applies here. Whenever a business wants to start or grow or innovate or experiment or research, they want somewhere wherein they can rent some space rather than buying that. And by now the conversation is no longer why cloud, it's more about how and when cloud. So whichever businesses or whichever companies you're working for, or if you're working for yourself, if you're a consultant, then you are directly or indirectly soon will be working on cloud. Either you're already embraced cloud or you're soon going to be working on cloud. So this is the overall database market, and this report is 2016. It is the database market, and I'm talking about any database, Oracle, SQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL. In 2016, it was estimated to be $33 billion. I mean, that's a huge market out there. And out of that, and this was in 2016, by the way, 93% was still running on-prem. What that means is there's huge opportunity out there. When I say opportunity, that also means that businesses will be looking to migrate this on-prem database workload to cloud to leverage the benefits of the PaaS solution. So and that's the reason it's a good space to be in, and that's the reason you should be listening to this presentation. And if you're not thinking about migrations, you should be thinking about migrating the workload, because sooner or the later you will be part of this wave. Cloud, as we call it, is no longer the next wave; it's the wave now. AI may be the next wave, but cloud is now. Actually, it's not the next wave. So what does the future hold? I mean, and I'm just giving you all the slides are non-technical, but giving you the reasons to think about it, that if you are investing your time, you're developing your skill set, and if you're thinking about what is the next step in your career, why it is more of to give you all the arms and ammunition and information for you to take the right decision. So this is the report produced by IDC, and they predict that if you see the public cloud growth year on year, this report is again last year, 2017. So in 2018, they expect 42%, which is like a healthy growth, not close to double, but maybe 1.5. Not exactly 1.5 times, but close to 3/4 percent or 75% of growth. And then in next 2 years they expect 46%. So and virtual machines also is going to shrink. So this is kind of customers are preferring PaaS over an IaaS solution. That is what you can infer from this graph. And if you see physical machines and private cloud will still exist, but if you see physical machines, that will go down drastically. So that's a prediction from IDC. And if you when the survey was asked to most of the customers, what are the top driver for migration for them? Uh, Again, the majority of the customers responded with cost, security, compliance, and that is maintaining that security compliance. Now GDPR is coming up in UK, so all the customers, all the vendors have to ensure they comply with that. That's a huge cost for them, and it's not even their business. So if, let's say, if Netflix or Uber or somebody is actually have to comply to GDPR, they are not adding any business value, but they have to take care of it. So that's the reason businesses want to offload that to a cloud provider like Microsoft Azure, that you take care of that for me, because I'm not ready to invest on that. I'm not gaining anything out of it. I have to do it because I have to be compliant, but I'm not liking it. And I don't want to get in their business. And this is where a PaaS solution would come in. Reliability, scalability, like 4 nines, that is an SLA which Microsoft provides. So you're giving or transferring that liability on Microsoft or any cloud provider for that. And I'm giving you all the motivations from business, and this is backed up by the data from the IDC itself. So database as a service evolution. So again, this is the changing role of a DBA. I'm sure you would have heard this conversation. The things which DBAs used to do a lot in the past and got buried into and got their hands dirty, and in fact had even sleepless nights because of all these issues, are going away. I mean, these are now what we call it as mundane tasks, and they are going away when cloud comes in, because Microsoft or the cloud provider takes care of that. Um, and what essentially you would be worrying about is performance, security, and when I say security, is making sure you're compliant, making sure the auditing. SKU recommendation, you would be a trusted advisor because nobody understands SQL Server better than you. So you would be asked that, hey, which SKU should we be going for? Should we go for standard tier? Should we go for premium tier, and why? And you would be expected to take informed decision based on the data which you collect from DMVs, monitoring solution, and so on. And leverage some of these intelligent DB capabilities, DBAS capabilities, which are there. So it is therefore more important for you to be on the cutting edge, to be that trusted advisor for your org, and develop the skill set. So hopefully I've given you enough information for you to know about why you should care about why Azure SQL Database, which is a PaaS offering by Microsoft in Azure. So the final slide on why customers prefer Azure, and it's not just about the database. It's really, if you think about it, if you compare Azure, and if you compare with any other database provider, Oracle, MySQL is open source stack, and PostgreSQL as well. Um, the reason customers or business owner prefer Azure is not just because of Azure SQL DB. It's also because of the Azure ecosystem which they get when they choose Azure SQL DB. Now, what do I mean by ecosystem? When you're developing on Azure, how do you automate deployments? When you're having large-scale deployments of SQL database, you can use ARM templates. You can use Backpack for exporting the data. Elastic data management client libraries, again, Elastic Pool for efficiently utilizing your resources. For managing performance, you already have DMVs. There are third-party solutions as well. And built in, there is log analytics, wherein you can route the log from Azure SQL DB to an event grid in Azure. And from there, you can send it to either Elastic DB and see it from the dashboard like Kibana, or you could also use Azure SQL Log Analytics Solution, OMS, as we call it. So there is monitoring app and layers already available for handling anomalies. Like if you detect that there is the workload has increased or decreased, you can use Azure automation further to respond to that. So you can program it, and identify if there's a peak workload. Should I go from standard and premium tier during my batch load and shrink it back? Now this is the new world of cloud, wherein previously you would not be thinking in that direction of how do you shrink and scale your hardware resources. But now you have to think as a DevOps guy, you have to think about how I should efficiently utilize my cloud platform. And this is the ecosystem which an end customer gets in Azure. Azure automation, PowerShell integration, maintaining schema changes. We have SSDT for continuous CI/CD, which can be integrated with Jenkins. We have built-in backup disaster recovery. Imagine yourself configuring always on database mirroring, clustering, all these complex solution, and then now your DR solution has been really like a turnkey solution. You just go to an Azure portal, turn on a knob, and you have a DR solution spin up. So the deployments has been simplified significantly, and you can also achieve point in time restores as well. So the point here is, most customers are not looking for Azure SQL DB just for the database engine which it provides. It definitely provides a superior capabilities as compared to other database engine with in-memory, column stored, always encrypted, and all the other features which you're aware of. But in addition to that, the ecosystem of Azure is what is interesting for every business, because it is very easy to configure a GODR. It is very easy to monitor in Azure SQL DB as compared to any other solution, because this is the beauty of PaaS offering. You want to offload that to the cloud service provider. And that also means you need to learn some of these things. Now, this is not as complex as you have gone through the ramp up curve which you have gone through, but but ignoring this you will miss out a lot. So my recommendation to the community and everyone who is listening to this presentation is, try to be active to understand how various components in Azure integrate with Azure SQL DB. Like for transparent data encryption, you have an integration with Azure Key Vault, which holds your TD protector key. How does it work? It's very simple. You just go to the documentation page and you can extract all this information. And if you have access to the Azure portal, you can simply just go to your Azure SQL, spin up an Azure SQL DB, and see it for yourself what all features are available, like transparent data encryption. I can turn it on. Here I can further also have vulnerability assessment, so you would know all the security risks which are available. We have built-in data discovery and classification. Now, all these things, as we are building in the cloud, we are also loading it back or bringing it back to on-prem instance of SQL Server. So data discovery and classification in the latest release of SSMS 17.5, we also have that for on-prem releases. But these were first developed for cloud, for the customers to get that experience. So we also ensure that whatever we can bring it back to on-prem, we try to bring that back as well. But these are the value which a customer gets when they actually go to Azure SQL DB. Geo replication is just turning a knob, or there is PowerShell available, or there are REST APIs available for a customer. So I would encourage you to explore this if you have not really seen that. But it's really, these are the reasons why businesses or customers move to cloud, or in particularly in Azure. And Azure SQL DB, which is a first class or the citizen in Azure, like unlike any other cloud providers like GCP or Amazon, they will get the next public release of Azure SQL Server, or SQL Server basically, and that is what they deploy. Whereas we light up all the new features first in Azure SQL DB. So that's a key differentiator for running SQL Server on Azure as opposed to any other cloud provider, because SQL Server is a Microsoft product, and we are continuously developing new features, and we are lighting it up first in Azure SQL DB. So all the new features which we develop, you would see that lighted up first in Azure SQL DB. So it is more obvious to, if you're running a SQL Server workload, it is more obvious to choose Azure as compared to AWS or GCP in your environment. And because of all the technology innovation which we are building and bringing that first into Azure. So now that you're convinced about why Azure SQL DB and why do you even care to learn about Azure SQL DB, the next step is migration journey. What happens to an existing SQL Server workload? How do you plan to migrate that in Azure SQL DB, and what options do you have? What tools do you have? So for any data migration workflow, if you look at the workflow, this is how it looks like, wherein you start with the discovery phase. In the discovery phase, you study your on-prem application and the database, what architecture it is, and then decide a target, a suitable target for that in Azure. Now, if you're running, let's say, data warehouse in Azure, in SQL Server on-prem, you may want to explore Azure SQL Data Warehouse, if that meets all the other criterias and cost and everything else. You can also explore that, hey, there are two variants or offerings of Azure SQL Database in Azure now. One is Azure SQL DB, as you know it, and another one is Azure SQL Database Managed Instance. Now, don't blame me on the naming convention. Why it's so confusing? Because I don't do that. Marketing owns that. But there are two flavors now is what you need to understand and remember. Azure SQL Database, which is already the database service, which is GA'd, which is live, which you already know, and the new offering called Azure SQL DB Managed Instance. So in the discovery phase, you will identify your source database, what version it is, and what target Azure service offering you want to go to. The next step will be assessment. This is where you would identify the gaps. You will assess your on-prem SQL Server to identify the gaps for you to migrate it to the target Azure offerings which you have identified. So, what is the effort required for you to modernize that particular database? Do I need to make any code changes, and how much time will it take for migration? This assessment is made in that phase. And the next step, once you identify the gaps, the next step is start converting those components, so that you can start making the source compatible to the target. So if there is something which is not compatible with Azure SQL DB or managed instance, how can you, like for example, cross database transaction, can you convert them into external tables? If there are SQL agent jobs, can you convert them into Elastic jobs, and so on? So you will try to identify and start converting the schema, or if there are some data types which are not supported, you will fix them and map it to the data types which are supported in the Azure service. Then you will, once you do that, you would run your QA testing. You would run all your performance testing. You will run your unit test to see if there are any issues, performance or functional issues. You will fix that and optimize that, and you would do that until you achieve a state wherein all your tests are green, and you have a green light from your stakeholders, business approvers, and your QA team saying that we are good to go. And then when you're ready to migrate, you can do a data sync. Well, by data sync, we mean something which will allow you to do a minimal downtime migration, which can be a backup restore, which can be a transactional replication, and so on, so that all your data is replicated. And when you're actually ready to cut over, you will make changes to your connection string. You will do a final failover or the cutover or migrate the last T-log backup, and then you will get started, and you will have your workload migrated to Azure SQL DB. So, this is the data migration workflow. It is a very generic workflow which applies to any migration, but more specifically or precisely, this is the path which you will take for SQL Server migration. So, the first step, discovery step. What do you look into the discovery step? Now, at a broad level, there are two ways you can classify your application. One is the legacy, or the monolithic design, and the second one is service-oriented, or which is more of a modern design, which is aligned with microservices architecture. Now, why I call the legacy as a monolithic design? Because you have code which is developed over a period of time on legacy SQL Server. When I say legacy, it is basically SQL Server 2005, 2008, which has instance dependencies, which means it has dependencies on cross database transaction. It may be using link servers, it may be using. So your code or data is distributed across multiple database design, and it has grown over a period of time that it is difficult to kind of get rid of it. So the new or the modern design is wherein for a given application, all the code and all the data within that code is contained within a single database. This is the new design which most businesses, developers prefer, which is what we call it as a microservices design, wherein the application and the database is kind of contained, and there is no data dependencies outside the database. This is more a cleaner way of designing application. This will allow you to scale horizontally by sharding the data, and you can have a single tenant or a multi-tenant model. Like when I say single tenant, which means uh, the data of single database will be mapped for a single workload or a single customer. Multi-tenant meaning multiple customers or multiple application, or multiple instances of the application will be sharing the same database. So a single tenant design, a good example there would be something like, let's say I'm making this up, so don't quote me on that, but let's say Uber, for example. For every customer profile, for every trips you make, they might be spinning up a simple single basic tier database, wherein you are the only connection through the app. Your data, your profile, your previous trips, your driver information, all the trips which you're making is stored in one database. And it's a simple basic tier database, so really low cost for them as well. And it can scale, which means another guy installs a new app and there will be a new database which will be spin up. So you can scale easily, scale out easily. And this is the modern design which most customers prefer, wherein they can scale out easily. Scaling up as the database starts growing up, as you add more and more data from different data sets and consolidate that, it gets difficult to separate it out, and you're building dependencies within the database. And also then as the database gets large, the maintenance is a nightmare, as you run check DBs on it, rebuild indexes on it. Just imagine, let's say if you have one large table of 600 GB, what nightmare it is to maintain that table without partitioning. So in the similar manner, the microservices architecture is what is preferred in the modern world by developers, and legacy is more of a monolithic design, which was good at some point in time, where servers used to be deployed on bare metal box, and it was designed and optimized for what was available at that time, but it may not be the optimal solution in the modern cloud era. So the next phase is asset, assess, and convert. So the tool which is available for you in this phase is data migration assessment, or assistant, I think. Yeah, it's DMA, data migration assistant. So DMAs are a new tool, completely rewritten. Previously, if you in the old days, like maybe a few years back, we used to have SQL Server Upgrade Assistant, and it was a tool which will help you to know that if your instances is ready for upgrade. And one of the things which I didn't like about that tool was that it will give you 10 reasons not to upgrade, because it will tell you this is not supported, this is not supported, and it'll give you all the red marks, which will kind of scare you, saying, okay, I don't think I'll ever be able to upgrade. The new DMA is designed so that it will give you solutions that, okay, you are not supported, these are your migration blockers, and until you fix them, you won't be able to upgrade. But you will see it gives you solutions as opposed to giving you problems. You might have heard this often somewhere in your organization, wherein your manager or some business guy comes in and tells you, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. I think that is what DMA is all about. So DMA will help you in assessment, and it is also a migration tool. You can use it for converting and deploying your schema as well to Azure SQL DB. So let me stop here and kind quickly jump on to a quick demonstration of how you would run DMA if you have not seen this tool before. So all your previous assessment is stored here. Like I ran this test migration from SQL and I found like 22 issues, and that was done today, earlier, like 3 hours back when I was testing the demo and prepping up for this session. But let me start over again. Let me have this migrate to Azure. Source is SQL Server, target is Azure SQL DB. Currently, we don't have managed instance yet, but that will soon be added. So currently, it's just Azure SQL DB, SQL Server. So it can be used for upgrades as well. So if you want to move from SQL 2008 R2 to SQL 2017, you can choose this option. Or if you're planning to move to Azure VM, that's another option. There is pretty much these two options are pretty much similar, but this might give you some more tips, which is more optimized for Azure VM. So I'll create this assessment. I'll check for database compatibility and feature parity. I will use my local instance, connect to that. I will use one of the local databases which I have, and let me start that assessment. You can run it on your production servers also, but I would prefer that you run it on your staging environment. A good, easier option is you can create a database clone by using DBCC clone database, or if you have an older version of SQL Server, then you might use backup restore in a staging environment and run it. It only reads the schema. It doesn't write anything or modify anything on your SQL instance. It's a read-only tool. So, and it will extract all the schema information and give you all the things which are not supported. And this is what I was talking about, wherein it will give you the recommendation on how to fix it as well, and what it takes for you to fix it. So this is more of feature parity, that hey, you're using cross database feature that is not supported, service broker is not supported, this property, trustworthy property is not supported, agent jobs are not available, and let's see compatibility issues. Now, this another good thing about this tool is it will give you compatibility back to lower levels as well, depending upon what is the current level of DB compat which is supported. And so that you don't have to run the tool again and again for different compat levels. When you go to the cloud, this is how you will maintain application compatibility, because cloud will always be deploying latest bits, because we want to uh, innovate and bring latest and greatest features earlier in the cloud, so you can leverage it. But the way you would also maintain application compatibility is by ensuring that you fixate the DB compat level to which it is supported, and that is how you will maintain your compatibility with the application. So you will choose what compatibility works well, and it can be lower compatibility level as well. Like, the optimizer was completely rewritten starting compat level 120. So if your application is certified or works well with the lower compat level, make sure you migrate and choose that compat level. Don't choose to the latest compat level unless you have done full testing, performance and regression testing, and if you are sure that it works on the latest compat level very well, only then you would upgrade that. But otherwise, you would be choosing the lowest compatibility level. So this is how it will analyze, and I'm not going to go into the specific details, but you can identify what all are the issues, go through it, and identify the objects as well, which where that particular issue was found, and fix that. So, and as you fix that issue, you will be creating scripts and fixing it on the source, so that source becomes ready and becomes compatible to move towards the target. So that's the goal of DMA and assessment phase. So that is what you will achieve in this phase. Um, okay, before I move ahead, I just want to take a pause here and see if there are any questions for me, either in the chat window or Manohar or Satya, if you're online. If there are any questions for me, just let me know. Guys, any questions so far? Okay, I'm assuming no questions. Can you guys? Okay, I'm just. Hey, Nirav. So I'm just looking at the question. Provide the Azure certificate for DBA. Are you talking about Azure certification for DBAs? Okay, so I think Azure Certified Data Platform is the certification which you need to focus on. Let me quickly check. Azure Data Platform certification. This is what I will look at. So this is what you should be focusing on. 70473. So let me bing it for you and you get that. So Microsoft 70473, I think. Yeah, that's the one. This is what you should be working on. And there are other solutions also, but if you are a DBA or have been working on SQL Server, this is the certification you should be targeting. All right. DMA is the only tool available to migrate from on-prem to Azure SQL. So Harish, to be more precise or specific, DMA is an assessment tool, and it also supports migration. So DMA is your assessment tool for and it's not actually doing the migration. I'll talk about Azure Data Migration Service, or there are other tools which is which involves manual intervention also. So that is what you should be focusing on. So yeah, make sure you are you get that clarified. So DMA is your assessment tool, and there is data migration service which is used for actual migration. So these are two separate. But for assessment, yeah, that is the only tool which I am aware of from Microsoft. I'm not aware of any other tools which might be available in the market, but I think DM is the popular one. 765. I don't know. I'm not a certification expert, but I think this is what I know is the for cloud data platform. If you see here, it is all about Azure SQL Server, recovering a database, managing database operations. So I don't know about 765. I don't see it here. So I'll share this link with you for you to actually check. Okay. All right. I'll keep moving ahead in the interest of time. So what are the common challenges which you might face when you're planning to migrate to Azure SQL Database, which is the PaaS offering, is unsupported data types like end text and text column. And these are some of the challenges of the lessons learned from the hands-on migration which I worked with one of the customers. So that's the reason I've listed them. Cross database joins. So the way you can solve that problem is by using external tables. Another issue which you will see and which is not flagged by DMA, but it is very important for you to know and share it with your developers or the business owners is that the time zone supported in Azure SQL DB currently is UTC, which means if you fire a get date against your Azure SQL DB, it will always return UTC time. Whereas your SQL Server workload, which might be running on-prem, it will be returning the server time zone, whatever time zone your server is. If it's in India time zone, it will return India time. So your so this might not give you any errors, but you will start seeing data quality issues wherein you might the date, if there is in the application code, if they are using get date, it might be populating UTC time as opposed to India time. So if you start correlating that information, you might see the time zones are different. SQL agent jobs are not available, and that for that you will substitute that with Elastic jobs in Azure SQL DB. So this is the code. I mean, how you would go about fixing those issues. Like cross database transaction can be converted into external tables, and to do that, here is a script how you can create an external data source and external data tables. So for time zone, wherein get date, if you're using get date in your application, you should actually create a custom date function using add time zone. So in starting SQL 2016, we introduced a new T-SQL construct called as add time zone, which will return whatever time zone you are in or you want to obtain. There are like 15 or 16 pre-built time zone which we have populated. So you can use that and create a custom function, and in everywhere in the application code, wherever you're using get date, you have to replace that with get local date to get the right date information or to convert it to the right time zone. So when that completes, so now once you apply those scripts, you will make your source database compatible to Azure SQL Database or Azure SQL DB, and now you're ready for migration. So for the customer which we worked with, this is how we carried with the migration. We ran DMA, which gave us all the compatibility issues or the feature parity issues, and we rewrote some of the code. We fixed all the issues, and we extracted the application compatibility scripts, so that which will make the SQL database running on your older instances 2008 R2 2005 compatible with Azure SQL DB. So once we were ready with that, when we were ready for migration, this is how we carried with the migration. So from SQL, we first took a backup into Azure Blob Store. So you can actually create a backup to directly to the Azure Blob Store using backup to URL that is supported starting SQL 2012 SP4. Or if it's a lower version of SQL Server, you can take a backup locally on the local disk and then upload it to Azure Blob Store using AZ copy. In our case, we used AZ copy for the customer. We restored that database on SQL 2016 on an Azure VM first. The reason we restored it on a Azure VM first is because we wanted to apply that app compatibility script because we were using the add time zone T-SQL construct, which is only supported in the SQL 2016 and above. So in order to make my source compatible to target, I have to apply those script. But if I were to use that or apply that script in SQL 2008 R2, it says it is not supported because by that during that time we didn't have that time zone T-SQL construct. So we had this intermediate staging area wherein we restored our database, applied all the application compatibility script. So it is like a two-step upgrade process. This is how we kind of upgraded it to 2016, applied the latest script, made it compatible to Azure SQL DB, and then we exported to Backpack. Once we export it to Backpack, you can import it to Azure SQL DB. And then we updated the statistics, and finally we changed the connection string in the application, and this was the end-to-end migration. So if you see here, the end-to-end migration takes a lot of effort, and it's also time-consuming. So there was a question from Harish. So we use DMA for assessment. And then we actually use Backpack for migration itself. So that's how we did that. There are other methods also, like transactional replication can also be used to migrate, but then you would need primary key and other limitations, like every table should have primary key and so on. But that's another option available for customers as well to migrate data. You can have an Azure SQL SQL DB as a subscriber and migrate data across. Another one is third-party solution like Activity that also provides a replication solution which can be used for migration. And there are other solution also basically which kind of migrates data to Azure SQL DB. But the simplest and the easy one would be Backpack. So the migration challenges till now for most customer is application compatibility, and this is I'm talking about Azure SQL DB, not managed instance. So uh, the discovery phase, assessment, refactoring. This is where you would spend most of your time. The migration effort for my customer which I worked with was like 4+ month of engineering time to rewrite some of the code and some of the application to fix the application compatibility issues. And when we actually did migration, we had around 48 hours of downtime. So overall, it was not easy for the customer to migrate. So how do we solve that problem, and how did Microsoft solve that problem? So we came up with two new offerings: data migration service and Azure SQL Database managed instance. So Azure SQL DB managed instance is the new offering which I was talking about, which went public a couple of weeks back. And let's learn more about what Azure SQL DB managed instance is. So now, with the introduction of Azure SQL Database managed instance, we have three offerings of Azure SQL Database PaaS. Um, One is Singleton Database, which in other words is the Azure SQL DB, as you know. Another one is Elastic Pool. The third one is Managed Instance. So managed instances supports full application compatibility with on-prem SQL Server. So with so your application code, which was developed on SQL 2008 R2, SQL 2005, 2012, is all supported as is in managed instance. So you can pretty much lift and shift your application, change your connection string, and it works. However, there are a few features which are still not supported, like file stream, file table. So if your application is using that, that is not available. Another thing like Polybase, R services, which are added in SQL 2016, that is not yet supported in managed instance. So it is primarily targeted for your legacy application, but most of the legacy application features like replication, service broker is supported. It is a PaaS offering, so built-in hardware, security, compliance, monitoring, management, all those things are taken care by us, which is Microsoft, and customer doesn't have to worry about it. And it is favorable business model. It is very competitive. If you think about all the cost compared to running SQL Server on-prem, you will see it is beneficial to run your workload on Azure SQL DB managed instance. So that's what managed instance is. Another thing which Azure SQL DB was was not able to provide was VNet support, wherein if you have hybrid architectures wherein your application is running on-prem and SQL Server is running on Azure, the 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 traffic for SQL Server for database goes through internet, through public endpoints, and most enterprise customers are not comfortable with that. What Azure SQL DB managed instance does that is it supports full security and isolation. It supports VNet isolation, so there's no public endpoint, and that is how it achieves highest level of isolation using wherein your connectivity goes through express route or it goes through VNet to VNet, which means there is no traffic which goes through public internet. So very suitable for hybrid architectures and scenarios as well. So and within managed instance, if there is data replication, that traffic never flows outside. Also, being in Azure, it supports Azure AD authentication. There is no Windows authentication in Azure. It supports Azure AD authentication, which basically syncs, and you can configure Azure AD sync to synchronize all your Windows login into Azure AD logins. and then that is how your migration for Windows user will happen. So we talked about the assessment tool, which is still a DMA. Uh, the another tool which we introduced is data migration service, which will significantly reduce the migration time. So we saw in the previous scenario, when you were migrating, I talked about the customer scenario which I worked with. It took 48 hours because we had to first restore it in the staging area, apply the application script, then we have to export it using Backpack and restore it, and that the end to end it took 48 hours. With Azure Data Migration Service, migration to Azure SQL DB and managed instance is just seamless, and it shortens the time significantly. So what? Let me show you quickly how Azure SQL DB or data migration service looks like. Let me quickly go to my Azure SQL DB portal. Now we are running short on time, so I'll quickly show you Azure SQL Managed Instance Service here. So in Azure, when you go to Azure portal, you can spin up, go to create resource, spin up or search for Azure SQL Data Migration Service. You can click that and spin up a new service. And in that, you can add new projects, new migration projects. What I'll do is I'll use one of the existing projects which I have. I can click on new activity or add it project, and let me select the source where my source database is, which is my on-prem SQL instance running on SQL 2012. So it will connect to that. And then I have Azure AdventureWorks database. So this is the database which I want to migrate. I will click Save. And this is where you will provide your target managed instance credentials. Now, I don't have any instance provision right now, so I am kind of stuck here, but essentially you'll provide your target instance, which is the managed instance. And then once you click that, save that, and then click on run, and it will simply do a backup restore. So managed instance supports native backup restore, and which is where migration effort is significantly reduced. So if I go back to my previous scenario, now you just take backup to blob store and restore it directly to Azure SQL DB managed instance, and then update the stats. So this migration time could reduce down to few hours. And then Azure SQL DB managed instance also supports minimal downtime migrations. Yeah, it's not available right now, but it will be lighted up soon. And and the way it does behind the scene is it will use backup log backups, transaction log backups. So by taking periodic transaction log backups, it will be restored, and when you're ready to cut over, you will just take a final tlog backup and restore that, and your database will be live on Azure SQL DB managed instance. So that's about the new offering. So the final slide on what is choosing the right data platform for your workload. So now this is a key takeaway slide. If you don't remember anything in this particular session, this is one thing or one slide which I want you to remember. So in Azure, we have three offerings or for SQL PaaS, all under the brand name of Azure SQL Database. Everything is called Azure SQL Database. There are singleton databases, there are Elastic Pool and managed instance. Singleton database and Elastic Pool are already available, and it's GA, but it is suited for cloud-born application, which is the new microservices modern style application. If you have applications designed on legacy instance, then it will not be support. I mean, you will have to go through an application refactoring exercise, which will involve a lot of time and effort. So in that scenario, managed instance will support lift and shift, wherein you can just do a backup restore of your existing on-prem application and restore it, and it will work fine. So these are the three PaaS offering, and you have Azure Data Migration Service in cloud again, which will connect to your on-prem sources, using express route, or and it is spinned up on, it is provisioned on a VNet. So it will allow you to migrate your databases also to Azure SQL DB, to all of these PaaS offerings. So it will support these targets as well. So this completes my session today. Let me know if there are questions for me. Else I can just stop sharing and give it back to the team.
Thank you, Parikshit. If you have any questions, please do post on this Q&A panel, or you can post in the chat window. Meanwhile, I'll be covering up a couple of slides regarding the pre-conference trainings that I was talking about at the beginning of the webinar. So we have 12 webinars on 7th and 8th of August before the Data Platform Summit. The first one is Dimitri Kotkovich. He's a Microsoft Certified Master from US on SQL Server, and he's going to be giving a full day training on troubleshooting and optimizing SQL Server like a pro. Sunil Agarwal is talking about on-premise database to Azure migrations. So it is an extensive session of what you have seen today. And Sunil Agarwal is a principal program manager at Microsoft. We have Razarad from New Zealand, who will be covering Power BI from Rookie to Rockstar. Leila Atati, again from New Zealand, an MVP, and she's a data scientist, and she'll be covering two precons. The first one is on leading edge data science with Microsoft tools. And Andy Leonard is an SIS expert, world-renowned SIS expert from USA, and he will be covering intelligent data integration with SIS and Azure Data Factory. Madan Gajendran and his team will be covering Cosmos DB. It's a full-day workshop. Leila Atati, as I've said, her second precon is on building intelligent applications using the Microsoft AI platform. Steph Lucky, if you are serious about data science, R a language, she's a very renowned expert on R. So she'll be delivering a full day precon on practical R for everyone. Sanjay Mishra's team, Azure CAT team, is going to be talking about scalable data architecture in Azure. It is an extension to the migration, so this will be a precon on the second day. We have Denny Cherry and Joy D. Anthony, who have been at the Data Platform Summit for the last 3 years. And Denny Cherry will be doing a precon on HADR. Joy D. Anthony will be doing a precon on SQL Server DBA for Linux. And we have Peter Myers, who has been a popular speaker last year, and he'll be doing zero to analysis services, the tabular model and multidimensional model approach. And he's an MVP from Australia. All these speakers will also be there for the 3-day conference and giving breakout sessions. Apart from these experts, we have many more experts, so please plan and attend this conference. This is happening in August in Bangalore. The site is tps10.com. And if you have any questions or if you need any help, do drop a mail to contact@tps10.com. So if I